One of his kind is sure to seek the Elden Ring. Even if it does violate the Golden Order.
Elden Ring is a story of how one finds meaning in their life, inspired by the many conflicting philosophies of how we, as small, ignorant, meek, and tarnished people, may understand the grace of God and their creation. Elden Ring is a marvel of mythopoesis, the creation of new myths from established tradition, taking broad strokes and minor details from the mythic cultures of the Norse, the Anglo-Saxon, the Hellenistic, the Roman, and the Christian, yet also more modern Western ideals born of colonialism. Today, we start the exploration of the philosophies of Elden Ring with the singular belief that cradles the entirety of the lore: manifest destiny. When we begin the game, Sir Gideon Ofnir narrates to us the story of how the Elden Ring shattered, how the demigods fought for the runes that would make them lords, only to stall in an armistice of the gods abandoning their thrones. Arguably, however, more important than the stories of the gods are the stories of the tarnished that now, guided by the grace of the greater will, seek to replace the goddess Marika as the new Elden Lord. More so than any From Software game before, the Elden Ring is not the story of the world that came before, but the world that is yet to come, and you, as a lowly tarnished of no renown, has an opportunity to shape that future, to be a part of something greater than yourself. Can you claim the great runes and conquer the lands between? Well, the fresh-off-the-boat Americans certainly believed they could. In the middle of the 1800s, after the 1803 Louisiana Purchase, record-high birth rate and immigration leading to approximately 20 million new U.S. citizens and two economic depressions in 1819 and 1839 caused those citizens to seek cheap land and quick employment out west. The United States government, under President James Monroe, instigated the doctrine of what would soon become known as manifest destiny. Manifest destiny is the idea that, under the mandate of God, the United States was destined by grace to conquer the entirety of the lands between the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean, solidified in the painting American Progress by John Gast, symbolized by a golden-haired goddess driving out native peoples and wildlife. Manifest destiny ultimately resulted in the successful founding of states from coast to coast, but also constant warfare and atrocity toward First Nations tribes and the growth of the largest and most draconian slave trade history has ever known. Conflict between slave states and free states ultimately culminated in the American Civil War, still the United States' most bloody conflict to date, estimated to have killed between 620,000 and 850,000 people living in the states at the time. Following the history of the lands between paints a quite similar picture to U.S. history from the 19th century. When the Erd Tree fell upon the lands between, its legion of tarnished waged a war of expansion that subjugated the demi-humans and the misbegotten, perhaps assimilated the Lu clan and the dragons, brought genocide to the fire giants. All was settled for a time until Queen Marika grew disillusioned with the Golden Order, shattered the Elden Ring, and left the world in an age of civil war between the demigods. One that resulted in the desolation of Caelid and the isolation of Stormvale, Raya Lucaria, Leyndell, the Haligtree, and the Consecrated North, leaving the lands between in a state of ruin and awaiting a new order. One such order was a dynasty founded on embracing that bloody conflict. Its founder was Mog, an Omenkin demigod, rejected for the ugliness of their horns. Mog was forced underground where they somehow communicated with a god called the Formless Mother. In the Formless Mother, Mog saw a new order. He need only steal his half-brother Miquella, who was cursed with an eternal youth and an eternal sleep, to achieve that goal. With the Formless Mother's blood, Mog believed he could make Miquella reborn as a full-grown god. Mog, like Radagon before him, would rule this dynasty as Miquella's consort. This is the scene we arrive to see when we enter Mog's bedchamber. From Software is filled with artists who proudly display their inspirations for all to see. Surely you know of the influence of Kentaro Miura's Berserk, but we also see quite a lot of influence from the surrealist artist Salvador Dali. For example, the grafting of Godric has many inspirations, but our first look at Godric in the Elden Ring trailers is deeply reminiscent of Dali's 1936 oil painting Premonition of Civil War, painted just prior to the Spanish Civil War of 1936 to 1939. Salvador Dali often expressed that he believed his work to have a prophetic quality, which is why in 1943, during a visit to the United States, he painted Geopoliticus Child watching the birth of the new man, which depicts an androgynous adult and young child looking on as a man emerges from an egg while oozing a pool of blood. The egg itself represents the world, the man's head and foot pierced through where North America would be, his left hand gripping the absent Europe. The egg yolk, which nourishes the new man, forms the shape of the South American and African continents. This painting signaled what Dali believed to be a period of drastic political change, a new era that would rely on the support of less developed nations to create the future of the United States. When we compare Dali's painting to Monk's Palace, the similarities are too many to ignore. From the strained arm to the pool of blood, Mog is the adult that points us to bear witness to this new birth, while we, the player, are the small child. Yet we reject and thwart Mog's vision. We favor instead the dynasty we wish to see as Elden Lord, our own manifest destiny. Stay true.